Okay, last one, I promise. So as I mentioned yesterday was all about WeBus and blah blah bus, and that made me think, I'm sure I have notes somewhere about National Express. And I did! I'm so sorry, you guys. So I went to Belfast, I think for maybe 3 days back in August, and the reason why I did it was because I just wanted to travel. I was feeling that travel bug, and it was cheap and it was easy and it just didn't require any thought. Just booked the bus and I just went. And I didn't even do much there. Like, when I think back, I didn't even go to like the Titanic Museum or anything, which I really should have done. So I'm gonna start by reading. I've got 5 notes here that I haven't read yet. And then I think on the other side of this page, I've got just bus information. So I'm gonna start with the non-bus related things, and then I'll come back to that in a moment. So the first thing that for me was interesting was I've never, I think, been in a youth hostel in one of the shared areas, because I have been in youth hostels before, but we've always gone as a family. So then we had one of those like private rooms, I guess, so we never had to really share it with anyone. So that was interesting. I didn't love the youth hostel I stayed at. It was a very small room. It was probably as big as, no, it was smaller, I think, than my room here. Now, to be fair, my room here is huge, but it was really small, and it was just these like steel bunk beds, really small, 3 sets of bunk beds, so there were 6 in the room. I don't think it was a full room when I came the first day. It was fine. On one of the nights, I think a girl from Australia came. I didn't speak to her. I'm not the most social person, but I could hear the accent and I was just like, no. Anyway, I've also written that I took a bus instead of a plane because it was 3 times cheaper at least, and it was direct, I've written, but surely the plane would have been direct. Maybe I mean that I didn't need to get to airports on either end. I guess that's what I mean, because the coach stations were bang in the middle of, I mean, from London and then to Belfast, it was bang in the middle of the big grand town of Belfast. I also only booked a week before I left because, like I said, this was a very last minute spur of the moment decision where I was like, I'm gonna go. So that was very, very stressful. And when I wrote this, which must have been before I left, I wrote, but it doesn't feel like I'm actually going. Like, I just couldn't believe that I was, you know, going to Belfast by coach. I mean, who does that? And again, I've written, I had very few plans. I quickly Googled what cheap things there are to do there, but that was it. So I think I went to the Ulster Museum, which I thought was very interesting. I went to the Botanical Gardens, which were nice. And that was just about it. The rest I just like wandered the streets. My youth hostel was right by Queen's University, so I just sort of wandered that area a lot. And that was it. I think it's called Queen's at least. Could be mistaken. So here's one note I've written from the coach, and then we'll go on to the rest. We kept stopping. It was, I mean, obviously, if you're gonna go from London to Belfast, you're gonna stop a lot, because it would not be worth their while otherwise. But every time they stopped, they would put on the lights, wake everyone up, which is good, because you don't want them to miss their stop. But it was literally about every hour, and obviously, no, not obviously, but I took a night bus. So I think I got on at like 8 at night and got there 2 the next day. I think, I could be completely wrong, but it meant I didn't get some good sleep. But I mean, that's definitely my own fault. So on the way, I started off with 2 seats, as in me and an empty seat next to me, which was lovely. But then I think somewhere like Birmingham, we had a lot of people come on, and so we all had to share seats, which is always less fun. Then I've written 1.5, which I think was because a kid came to sit next to me, so I had more space than if a, you know, full-grown person was sat next to me, but I still had to share that space. And then I can't remember where, somewhere, everyone went off and I had the whole aisle to myself, which was great. I need to stop doing this. I've written not as comfortable as plane. That's shocking. I mean, what do you expect, Raquel? I've also written trying to sleep with seatbelts was difficult and I kept getting tangled. Obviously on a plane, the seatbelts are just around your lap, whereas here it comes across, and I must have been like twisting and turning, knowing myself. Oh, because I think I was trying to lie down, which obviously wasn't going to work on a bus. Finally, around 5:15 in the morning, I managed to sleep for 3 slightly interrupted hours. Yeah, I remember that because I went to sleep at 5:15 and the next time I woke up it was like 8:30 and I couldn't believe it because it was light and everything. It was strange. I've written that I brought a duvet and pillow. Pillow I'm not surprised by. Duvet, I just don't believe that. There's no way I brought a duvet. Maybe a blanket of some sort, but even then I can't. I have no idea what I mean by that. My next point is beautiful scenery. Of course, Raquel is going to comment on the scenery. I think this was I think we were even entering Scotland already at that point, or maybe it was still Northern England, but it was very close to the border, and it was very green, very lush, very pretty. And it was the kind of views you don't get from a plane. Obviously in a plane you can sometimes see nice landscapes at bigger scale, But this was very much like, ooh, I'm just there. Yeah, so this is what I mentioned yesterday. I've written terrible Wi-Fi, it doesn't work for a lot of things, and it was slow. And it kept dropping out as well. I mean, it was nice to have Wi-Fi anyway, especially because that way I could contact people through WhatsApp, but it wasn't the most reliable thing. Oh, right, so to get from England to Northern Ireland, there is water. Now, we weren't gonna swim across, and I don't think there's a big bridge. Actually, my very first thought before I even got to the coach station was that we were gonna get the coach from Liverpool. That's what I was expecting. Once again, this girl didn't know enough about her trip. Anyway, it's fine. We got on somewhere like Cairnaman? I think I pronounced that right. Ken Ryan? But one of the things I noticed was that I didn't have a special ticket for the ferry, and what I had expected to happen, which is what happened when I went to Holland, which was after this, so I don't know why I expected it to happen, was that the coach would go on the ferry and we wouldn't have to worry because we'd be on the coach. The coach didn't go on the ferry. It dropped us off outside and said, have fun, with no extra information. So we went in, I got in line, and when I got to the front desk where you're meant to either buy a ticket or show a ticket, or I don't know, I was like, right, here's the deal. I don't have a ticket. I came by coach. Coach promised to get me to Belfast. Help. Obviously, I didn't say it to her like that. I was so shy. I think I must have been like, I'm so sorry, but is there any chance you could help me? Because I don't know what to do, and please help me. Thank you. Sorry. Anyway, she helped me out. It was fine. I just had to show the ticket of my coach, and that was it. Ferry was really nice. It was a very nice sort of layout and space, and actually on the way back I went to a different area of the ferry, and both times it was a really big ship for not a lot of people, and it was just comfortable to sit there, and you had places to plug in your chargers or whatever, and you had a nice view and you could go outside. It was all great. I think I've told the story about my missing headphones, so I won't go into that, but they had a cup of coffee which you could get, which I think was £2.60, which I didn't think was that unreasonable, and it was free refills for the entire journey. Usually I'm not a coffee drinker, I'm not someone who spends money on things like that because I don't think it's important for me, but I knew that I needed a coffee. All I could think on the coach was I need a coffee. So I got it, and I ended up getting a mocha, and they were so good. I think I drank 3 or 4, so I definitely got my money's worth. So that was good. I've also written that there was no/bad Wi-Fi. I think there must have been like you have half an hour limit on Wi-Fi, and it wasn't very strong, but I survived, as we all do. My first impressions of Ireland whilst I was on the ferry were beautiful and so green. Because that was one thing I really loved about being on the ferry, is that view you get coming into the country. It's so cool. I've also written, great way to enter country. I mean, because it just starts coming and suddenly you just see the green and the colours, and yeah, I was pretty pleased. But when I got off the ferry, like I said, we'd been given no instruction whatsoever about what was happening. So I got off and I walked towards the sign for coaches, and there was no sign whatsoever about National Express or about to Belfast or whatever. So I think I just asked someone and I said, look, here's the deal. Again, I probably wasn't that confident with any of it. I was probably just like, I'm sorry, help me please. Anyway, I managed to get there, but it was labelled something different. It wasn't labelled National Express, so that was a bit annoying too. And then I've written, slept a lot more on the way back. So obviously when we came back from Belfast, I managed to sleep more. I think that was because the part of the journey that was at night was the part of the journey where there were less people. And I've also written the Wi-Fi was slightly better on the way back, though not much. I think that's all my notes on that. There you have it. That wasn't really a review, but it was just a fact about National Express. So when all these bus lines start running up again, make your choice. Look, I always go for the cheapest or the most convenient. I think I'd be interested in taking a megabus, as I mentioned yesterday. Oh, it's so pretty. Sorry, this bird just flew right. The sun is coming that way, the bird flew this way, and the sun just reflected on its wings. Oh, it's so beautiful. As I was saying though, I think I'd be interested to take a megabus for a longer trip to see how I feel about it. But overall, they were all value for money. You spent so little money on these trips. For me at least, I spent so little money on these trips, even though most of them were last minute, that if you've got the time and the patience and you don't have very high standards, it's great. Okay, I'm gonna go now. This video is way too long and I'm not gonna film anymore, even though I have so much more to talk about, but that will be tomorrow. Okay, bye.